Hello there, and welcome to my Arty Corner here on YouTube. My name's Angela Porter, and I'm an artist best known for my adult colouring books, but I also love to play with pattern and to explore things and to try new things out and experiment things, but also to inspire or to encourage and help and give suggestions and my way of thinking to help those of you who are also on a creative journey. And I think we all get ideas from one another. I'm not saying mine are all correct. All I'm saying is they're correct for me at this moment in time. And I reserve the right to change my mind, because that happens with time, with experience, with all kinds of things. So before I go any further, just thank you ever so much to each and every one of you who subscribed. I genuinely mean that. It means the world to me. I've said this before and I'll say it again. When I started this YouTube channel, I thought I'd spend years talking to myself. And essentially that's why I started it. It was a way of getting me to put into words what was going on in my head while I was drawing and creating. And it's grown into a channel now that's got over 1,000 viewers. So thank you, 1,000 subscribers. Don't know how many viewers entirely, unique viewers. Because analytics, I love statistics, but it does my head in on social media. And it's not about that for me. But I just want to thank each and every one of you who's clicked that subscribe button, who's given a thumbs up for a video, and for those who continue to return and watch my videos, whether in their entirety or just the part that interests you. I appreciate you all so very much. I'm no longer talking to myself, which is a good thing, probably. But no further ado, in front of me I have a piece of the Fabriano toned paper. This one's the clay colour. And today I have a hankering, I have a need, I have a desire to play with fragments. And I don't exactly know what's going to happen. I have got the Zentangle primer open, so I think we'll just have a quick look. It's open on my computer because I've got the Kindle version, because the print version, I don't think at the time I was looking for it was available in anything like the Kindle version. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to use a circle within a square, which I think could result in things interesting. Because really, essentially, I've got a circle there, you know, the orb in the middle squished in. But there's nothing to say that I can't make this smaller and work with it like that, because that could be quite fun. In fact, I could see almost I'll show you what I'm thinking here. As I looked at that, I was thinking, oh, wouldn't it be fun if... Because my mind goes to things like that, and if I don't record them straight away, they sort of vanish off into the distance or into the nether regions of my unconscious mind. Wouldn't that be fun? And what would be more fun is if I connect them like this. So I'm creating a pattern on top, or a pattern underneath these squares. So let me just pop some more orbs in. You can see I'm drawing these quite large, and they're not even centered, because really it doesn't matter too much, because we will make these join up. And then I'll join this way, we'll go this way, oops, misstroke. It'll be fine, it'll work out. It always does. One way or another, we get it to work. But you can see how those are going underneath, and I can really have a seriously good muck about with them. I can tell you that much now for now. That would be so much fun. And also whether I add colour or pattern, because I could create some pattern in these sections but leave this one here. You know, the world is my oyster, as people say, or lobster if you prefer. And I can also then have these lines disappearing into various places if I wish. So I'll have another pair here, and then that looks almost like they've gone through the paper, doesn't it? This is... So we've got one going this way as well. I'll continue it on because I can. So I'll show you how to do that one again, how to do this. I'll do it here. So I'm just carrying on these lines roughly in the same direction. It's not sloping off. And then you draw a letter C around the ends. There I've put like a cap on it. But if you just want the simple version, so let me carry on here. I'm just going to draw a double line like that. And then you just pop it, a letter C that's quite small, so it looks like we've cut holes in it. And then the longer and thinner you, or the less bent you create this, I suppose, the more like a slit in paper it looks like. So it's playing around with things. I quite like ones like this. And then you can do funky things like this, which is quite fun. It looks like it's going through something here that is above the paper now. And we can add to that sort of like illusion by adding some line weights, thicknesses there, and shadow eventually. So there's a bit of fun. So from this to this, there is no hope today. You do know that. The ability of me to have things that will work sensibly today, I think, is seriously compromised already. So let me go back to the original kind of idea with this circle that fills the gap. It doesn't have to be perfect. Your square doesn't have to be perfect. Zentangle is all about perfectly imperfect. One of the shapes I love is to draw a nice swirly S shape in the middle, and then you get these two sort of like curving round teardrop shapes. It looks like a yin-yang symbol, and there's so much you can do here. I find it really lovely. When you aura this, it almost looks like the sides become flat or bent inwards in some way, so it seems already instantly to give that kind of dimension. And I particularly then like to either put something like that in there, or even to add another aura inside and fill that in black. So I've got a fair few examples in there where I've done it one step at a time. So let me just do the starting point again. Just to remind me where I went. And of course that can then become this. I have an arrow showing. These laces are getting in the way. Kind of fun, I think. So, next job. Another square. The squashed circle in, and I'm going to draw a smaller circle inside. And I'm also going to create a border or a frame that goes behind this circle. So all I've done is auraed inside the corners, and that instantly gives this here. Now I could fill the inside in with black and it would look like this is a ring sat on the top. And that's always possible. But sometimes it's nice to do something perhaps a little bit unexpected or different. So here, I could take this idea again, but I think instead I'm going to just draw some triangles in. And I think it's these triangles that I'm going to fill in black rather than the cross. And I'll do something with that cross in a moment. The X. That's good enough. And I think what I'll do is I'll just put an aura inside. Now, if I was wise, I'd have done this inside those triangles before I coloured them in. But wisdom today is not my best thing. And then perhaps I'll just put a couple of bars in, like so, just for fun. Of course, there's lots of ways of filling that kind of circle in. You know, it's not exclusively that way. Again, it's just, it would be so easy to fill not just this small sheet of paper up with options here, but, you know, to carry on and do pages and pages of it. Because whatever you do, if you repeat the circles, you'll end up with a pattern, or you repeat these square fragments, you'll end up with a pattern. This one, I'm going to draw in this instance a curved triangle inside. So I've sort of started with these almost pointing towards the corners, and this one in the middle down here, and that works. And then I'm just going to pop another circle in the middle. And then these I'm going to fill in black, because I like the graphic nature of the black and not black. I'm just going to put a little spot in there. And then I'm going to go and aura these just to give a little bit of dimension. And then again, otherwise they look a bit like a pair of underwear. Weird underwear with a dot in the middle, but always remind me of that. Which might say something about my head, or just that it may have been pointed out to me once, and it's just that kind of idea that I just can't get out of my head. So that works quite nicely as well. Something a bit different. Okay, let's carry on. And try something a little bit different here. You can see I'm making not a lot of effort today to be precise with how I draw my lines. This is about getting ideas down onto paper, far more than it is in creating something that's incredibly perfect, or as perfect as can be. Oh, I'm doing little petals. Or mini crescent moons. Again, I'm going with something that's quite graphic here. So I could aura around these, but I think what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to do another go around here with smaller versions. So from the centre of each of those petals, from one centre to the next, and they shrink in size automatically. And where I've got that little gap going down, I can add these. And I think here I'm just going to draw around them and create another circle inside, perhaps. Then I can aura that, like so. Very ornate, typically me. Of course you can leave it with just one of those around and leave the centre much bigger. It's always your choice. I'm not saying that this is what you should do. This is what you could do, and you can stop at any point where you like how complex this is. Okay, I have here, I've got a brown Tombow for Denisuke, and I think these are pigments pens, so they are waterproof. It looks a bit odd against the grey, but it's a different tone, so I'm just filling the corners in with some little lines there. I could have done it in black. Black would have worked. And I'm going to add some weight to the left and bottom of this orb. And then weight these lines to the top and bottom on the inside square and the left and bottom on the outside square. I haven't done any line weighting or corner rounding or anything anywhere. That's fine, that's lovely just as it is, I think. I'm going to leave that one as it is, but it doesn't mean that I couldn't do something with it. Of course I can. Top, bottom and sides, I'm just going to put almost like they're crescent moons, but I'm not going to colour that inner shape in. I am going to add a thicker line to the bottom and left and on the outside, so the bottom and the left. If there isn't a left, I leave it alone. And then to the top and the right of those inner ones. So it looks a little bit like I've got some kind of holder there, and I'm going to make them hold another orb there. And again, I'm just going to weight this line to the bottom and the left, and it seems to give it some kind of structure. It looks almost like a life belt, life preserver that you'd throw to somebody if they were drowning. So I could, if I put that there, what I'm going to do here is I am just going to create a radiating pattern in the middle, which will then, these lines sort of will join up with the ones on the outside. Doesn't have to exactly, because I would imagine that very few people would actually take the time to go and check whether they do. There will always be one, though, who does. At which point you say, well, I'm a perfectly imperfect human. That's what I'd say. Okay, so I'm going to draw the smaller circle in here again. But in the corners, I'm going to fit in some other circles to hold that inner one in place. And let's do some line weighting on these. All to the left and the bottom. And then it looks like we've got some right discs in there. I think I'll just fill these corners in because they're pretty small. That one needs perhaps a little bit more weight to bring it down there. There. And then these sections, I think I'm going to add some stripes. So I'm just drawing two lines a little bit apart so I can widen them and filling the space in between them with ink. So I'm getting some nice stripes happening here. And of course that means I've got a white gel pen here somewhere, haven't I? My tools are pretty basic today, I do have to say that. It's a basic day. for things. So automatically these have changed. So I'm going to pop a bead in here and in here. And that centre one, I think I will aura like that, and then I think I may just fill the centre in this example with some tipple, but my tipple is big in the middle, or the individual tipples are big in the middle and getting smaller towards the outside. And I think I want them smallest at the bottom, so it feels like there's a weight there. And also I put some shadow in without me using anything for shadowing. This one, I think if I was to have this in a pattern, I'd rather like to have that border on it so it looks like we've got tiles. So if I add a border here, I'm not worried it's butted up against the other one next door. But then I could add smaller circles in the corner here. So if you have another one next door, you'd have a group of 4 circles and you get that lovely balance. It separates all of this from the others as well, so I quite like that. It's different. Okay, let's have a look. What if I'm going to put, oh, where's my pencil? Excuse my arm. I've got a pencil here. I'm going to use a pencil just to split this into 4. I don't want to use a pen. Well, I don't think I do. And I'm going to put 4 circles in here. Essentially, simply because I can. And what I've got here, I'm going to just add some ink into these little nooks and crannies. So just rounding these little corners where they connect a little bit, and if they don't quite connect, well, I can use ink to make them appear like they've always connected. So that creates quite a nice pattern just as it is. But I do think it would be quite nice to put circles in. This reminds me of glass windows. I don't know how or why, but here, just for fun, I'm putting, well, a diamond in the centre one, but to the corners it's like a triangle. To the sides and top and bottom we've got a triangle shape in there. So that works quite nicely. And that middle bit I could add some pattern to. And I think with this one, I think I might do just some simple cross hatching in brown, just for a bit of variety. So I'll go that way, I'll turn my paper, and then I can go the other way. And yeah, you can see I spent some time this morning drawing on my drawing board again. I am absolutely determined to cover this. So, haven't seen, I've got some to add colour to, but I've done all of this here, and I think I did these. It keeps me busy. When it's finished, I'll take a proper picture so you can see. So there, we've got that one there, and again, that would work nicely with a border or without a border on it. However you'd like to do that one. But essentially this as well is, if I draw this again, because I've just seen that this is essentially four of these put together. And somebody's going to go, we saw that, we noticed that. Excellent, because you're quicker than I am. How to make a lot of hard work for myself. So each section of this is one. Of course, I should have realised it as I was putting the pencil lines in, but I didn't. Just do some cross hatching in there as well. But it's quite nice because you can see how it will go together then without the border around it. So I quite like that. Okay, so let's add some more. Go down here. Just checking I'm still in the frame. Like this. Well, I'm also going to split this diagonally, which means this could also be a almost a triangular fragment, but I am squashing two orbs in like this. And then I'm going to aura this corner and this one and put some black in there. And then on this one and this one, I'm going to aura and I'll get this rather cute shape here, which isn't a triangle. It's more like an arrowhead, isn't it, almost? We get that kind of weird shape going on, which is ripe for playing around. It's like a cell splitting now. So there's that one. That one would be fun because shadowing it, putting shadow in the middle, it'll make it look like it's folding inwards. That'll be fun. I always like ones where you get optical illusions. Okay, so let's do a smallish circle in the middle because I've done big, slightly smaller. So how about smaller, smaller? And I think with this one, let us do this. And then I'm going to aura both sides of these lines. And then I think I'm going to aura the circles. So oh, I haven't done that line, have I? It's okay, it'll be fine. And then I can start to aura these. So it's a bit like Aruka's, isn't it? There we go. But in a limited kind of way, because I'm going to stop at this point and leave some gaps here. So we've got some weaving going on there. And I think that just needs that there. And then around the sides, in this section, I could leave it. But I also could just pop in some little brown lines just to fill that gap in with something a bit different. Not sure about that. I think I should have left it. Okay. And of course, if we're going to go tiny, this is taking this one and really shrinking it down. But this one, I think, will that's quite nice. I'm adding teardrop shapes or leaf shapes and creating a flower in there. I'm also going to aura these. So that's quite nice to begin with. There's opportunity for adding more in these little parts as well. I said I was going to finish, but, well, don't be silly. So that could be one just on its own, but I think I'd quite like to do that. Because it does make it look that we've got something suspended above, doesn't it? I like that. Okie dokes. One more, because I'm going to do this one this way. I'm going to add this one this way. And then I'm going to add horizontal ones this way, and then add another circle in. So we've got weaving in a weird kind of way there. I like that. That's fun. That'll create an interesting kind of pattern, especially if you could put them all together exactly the same way, but if you rotate this, alternate them, so you've got this vertical, then horizontal, then vertical, then horizontal, and here vertical, then, you know, going downwards, you get the idea. That could create a really interesting kind of weaving in and out. And of course, I'm fascinated. I'd be fascinated to do that. Maybe I will now. Maybe I won't. No, perhaps not today. So instead of doing these lines vertically, I'm going to do them vertically and horizontally. I'm going to do them diagonally. Like so. And then pop another one of these in. Like that. And then I could pop horizontal lines in and vertical. Or vertical and horizontal, whichever you prefer. And that gives something that's completely different again. So that's fun. I quite like having the layers of circles there. You could do it without the layers of circles, with the diagonal ones all coming to the centre, or to this second one, and then the horizontal ones there. Do that one quickly, because these don't take a lot of time to draw. So if I do this one, I'll put the diagonal ones in first. Or the circle again. Doesn't have to be perfect. But then I'll put these horizontal ones in. And that would mean that no matter which way round you put it, it's symmetrical in all directions, I guess. Whereas this one isn't, so you could actually rotate it back and forth, so you get this goes this way, then that way, then this way, and so on. You can do that. A bit more complicated, but it's doable. This one here. Just want to revisit this one for a moment. Because sometimes it's nice to do just one side with this kind of filling or layering going on. It's almost like you've got two leaves that sort of like go one against the other. One there is much darker, and this one we could just pop this in like so. So it adds something a bit different. All these from starting with a circle. This one, if I take this one here, I started with quite a small circle in the middle. If I make it bigger, we can still do this, but it just creates a slightly different look, but it's still the same idea. And I think, let me just take this one right to the edge. Instead of having the points there, I'm sure we can do that the other way round. And that as an idea then leads to, I'll put a nice big circle in there where instead of straight lines, if you're not very good at straight lines going towards the middle, then use little leaf shapes or rice shapes like that, because it will work in exactly the same kind of way. And you just get a different shape in the centre. Here it's more triangular, here it's got that flatter top to it, as if we've cut the point of a triangle off. Same here. And then those corner bits, or these bits I'm putting in, are perfect for adding other patterns or details to. I'm just leaving them as they are for here and now. So we've got all of these. Oh, look at that. I made a right mess there, didn't I? How many have I got? Was it 35 minutes? And I mean, I've faffed around a lot with some of these, putting detail in, whereas these ones I'm not. A couple of last ones. How many times have I said last ones? So this one I'm making a little bit smaller. I'm just going to add tiny corners in to suggest that we've got this, there's a frame underneath this. They sort of need to match, but they don't have to. Then what I'm going to do here, how am I going to do this? Okay, I'm going to draw a line in this way, and then at the top of the line I'm going to take a spiral in one direction, then in the other. I'm going to flip my paper to make it easier for me to draw this more consistently, like this, and then I'll join those down there. And I could do the same here, but let me do that on a different one. Let me draw this again. So that's not quite circular, but you know what I'm getting at, don't you? It's gone more of a squarish circle, which is fine. It is what it is. And then here, what I'm going to do here, I'm going to put a cross in the middle, but I'm going to extend the cross lines just a little bit so that I can go up and round there, up and round here, up and round there. And I'm going to try and get them to meet in the corners. Just like this, because then we get little heart shapes forming, just with straight lines, starting from a straight line. And then I'm going to just pop those corners I put in. Should be able to get them to point into the top of the little hearts there to create that. So that's quite cute. That's worked nicely. Of course, I could have just done let me just pop that in as a whole circle, it'll be fine. So I could start by doing these ones. Connect these with lines. I could then put the other line in and again connect these this way and this way. I've got smaller ones going on here, but it'll work. So we've got that more weaving, and if I could think about it, I could actually get do this in pencil and get them to overlap and sort of like weave in the middle, but my brain's not working that way today, so we're not going to get that one done. So we've got a fair few there. These are quite fun actually with those on. Okay, let's have a look here. I could split my circle, which would be quite fun. So just saying, we can split the circle in half. That means side-by-side boxes will have circles that go across them. But I think it would depend how you add pattern, what happens with these. And just do that. I can put a circle there. So this, when you put them together, will look like you've got overlapping circles. I think that we could actually have this as a rectangular fragment almost, but almost. Okay, was there something else I wanted to do? Brain ticking, brain ticking, brain ticking. I did some that had bits sticking down here, didn't I? So I put the aura in. So what about if we did, here I did 3, here I've done many, here I've done 4, and it gives that nice kind of symmetrical feeling to it. This one you can rotate, and you'll have this sort of like, if you rotate this so these are on the sides, or this is at the top instead of the bottom as it were, then you'd have a different kind of meta shape or pattern forming, whereas this one, it won't make a lot of a difference. So we've got something like that. All good fun. Okay. Right, shadow and highlight. Oh, yeah, hang on. How's that one? That one's okay, but I need to clean the ends of one. Seriously, I was looking for tortillons and things yesterday. You can buy mixed bags of these paper stumps and tortillons. You can buy just a couple of tortillons for a lot of money on their own. Or you can work out how to make your own tortillons, which I've seen videos on, or instructions. So it's on my list of things to go and look for. Okay, how would I add shadow? With these, I think I'd add shadow round the outside of the inner circle, but avoiding the lines. If anything, the top would be a little bit more shadowed than the bottom if you've got light coming from one direction. Just to mess with dimension, I'm going to add some shadow on the middle of these cross pieces as well. In the centre here, as if they're in shadow. And then I'm going to add highlight along the edge here. And just a bit of highlight on the corners here. Right, which side? That's the one I want. Just gently coaxing this into the paper so it's not going to smudge too much if I touch it. So that really messes with that sense of dimension, doesn't it? And then just to help with it all, we're going to put white right the way around the edge here, as if this is really catching the light. don't know. I think I'm randomly picking the ends up and using whichever now. Genius. But that just subtly lightens that, so that's fun to do. Let's reverse this idea where I'm putting the lightest in the middle here. I'm going to add a tiny bit of shadow on the edges and just blend that out. Right, that one is for graphite. Like so. And then here, this one would be, put the shadow on the inner side of this. And blend this way. Like so. So that gives a different kind of feeling again. And I can just put perhaps just a little bit of lightness around there. So remember, this is part of a pattern. It's not necessarily to do with light sources. Zentangle is all about patterns rather than where the light would be coming from, though I can't help but think where light is coming from. And then I'm going to pop some shadow in the corner of this outside square and just blend those, paying attention to which end of this I use. And just making that a little bit darker. Just around the edges. There we go. So 2 different ways of adding shadow and light. This one, remember, I added quite a bit of light to it. And so I'd want to pop some shadow in round underneath it, which I can do. Don't forget, we've got the ability here to do this quite nicely, so I can just go around the other ones with just a little bit of shadow just to help set it back, but the main shadow is going to be between these two. And then just to mess with our heads, just a tad, I'm going to put quite a bit of lightness. Oh, I've managed to mess both up, I think. Is to create that highlight here for this one. Sometimes it really is fun to swap around where you're going to add shadow and highlight and just see what happens, because you never know. This one here, I'm putting graphite right down the middle of it. I'm going to leave the other 2 blank because I'm not entirely sure what I want to do with them. But here I definitely want to add some shadow down the middle and just gently ease it out a bit, like so. And then I'm going to put white, not quite on the end, but towards it, where I want this kind of like this area is at the top, but I'm going to add some shadow on that, on the outer corners as well, just to make it feel that it's beginning to bend back downwards here towards that dark area. So just a little bit there. Just get that worked in a bit more. So that really makes that quite dimensional. Even I can see that. I don't often see the illusions I work with. Sometimes it takes other people to point it out to me, or I need to look at it on a screen and suddenly go, oh yeah, now I can see what people were on about. I think that happens because I get too close to what I'm doing, and I see it in terms of the lines and shapes and the way I added colour, rather than the way that light can be bent. So with this one, I've just filled in that cross really with the white charcoal. And then I'm just adding graphite round it, which will help to make that white shine even brighter. I am going to pop some highlights in this outer circle here, checking which end is the white end. So thin, this is awkward to hold. But that's beginning to lift that up, which is great. I do something similar here, but I just put the highlights in the middle here to begin with. I know I'm doing the highlights first. It doesn't matter too much which way round you do them, I don't think. I'm going to add the shadows in under here. Part of me thinks if you did the highlights first, the white the white end of the paper stump or the tortillon that you use will stay white longer. That's my theory on it anyway. Oh, sunshine coming out. The weather today can't make its mind up what it's going to do. So for this one, I am going to pop some shadow there and shadow just around that upper edge. And I am putting the shadow in first here. And then with this, I'm just going to add the highlight round. But it's almost a circle that touches the top outside, but the bottom inside, if that makes sense. So it's kind of an offset circle. Oh, there we go. Using the graphite end, which most probably won't harm this instance. But that gives it more of a... This is quite flat as a white circle goes. This has got more dimension. So if I add some shadow along the bottom edge there and the top edge of the inner circle, as it were, just that little bit of grey there, a little bit of grey there, and suddenly this becomes more curved as a circle, beveled over. So that's quite nice. I haven't done anything on the corners. I mean, my inclination is to actually make where these meet that circle the darkest. Although here I've added a little bit to the corner and leave the corner as it is really. So it looks like they're sat, this circle is sat on top of that frame. You can add some highlight then, if you like, to the corners. And that will actually make this look almost bent as well, as if the corners bend up. And it is entirely your choice how you do it. I'll do corner here, a corner there, a corner here and a corner there, so you can see how that affects it, how it makes it look. There we go, so you get a sense for that. This one, I think I do this by adding shadow where these crescent moons meet, where the bottom, the legs of them, as it were, sort of like underlie both this circle here and then here where they meet that upper circle of crescent moons. Trying to keep that fairly sensual, and then I can just come back and add some white just to the tips, just to really brighten them up, as if they're just sticking upwards and just catching a little bit of light. on their tips. So that works quite nicely, and that really does add a fair amount of dimension. So again, I'm going to pop the brightest in first because I find that a useful way of working. Never orthodox, you might notice that. Never orthodox. But I do want to get some shadow in. So some at the bottom and some here around the edge. And then I can always add a bit more white if I need to. So we've got that one. This one, I'm going to put white in the centre of this. Like so. Shadow to either side of these. Just to that there. And then I'll take the white and just work it so that these blend together along the edges. Just a bit. And then I'm going to pop some shadow at the top here, which will go over the brown, but the brown should still be visible underneath it. Just get it that little bit lighter towards the bottom. And then I'm definitely going to pop some under these here. So what I've done here is I've put the graphite under the ring at the bottom. And at the top, just for comparison, I've put it at the points of these just to look. There's not a lot of difference because they basically are such a small area. It's all become one colour, isn't it? So here, I put the chalk right in the top there. I've got graphite here, which I'm working in a ring. And then I'm going to softly work the chalk into the graphite, so I've got that lovely kind of glowing top there. I'm going to put graphite around the edges of this so that these are sunk downwards. But I am going to come back. I should have done the white gel pen first, shouldn't I? What an idiot. So here it's the graphite goes along the bottom and top, as it were. And then I can just ease the white in. So that gives that some dimension. The rest of it is pretty much personal preference, I guess. So I'm going to pop some shadow at the bottom of these rings. They're a bit too small to fuss around with too much. So if I make the bottoms look like they are in shadow, then I can add white to the top. And it's working out what you can do with the space you've got to work in. This actually, I really like this. I like the very graphic nature of it. With black and white, it's very bold, very strong. It works though, it does work. Okay, so this one, I'm going to put shadow around this section of brown lines, like so. Because I want this area in shadow. I didn't need to put the brown lines in really, I could have just done this with graphite or black. Go for something a little bit different. I'm also going to put a touch of graphite where these overlap. So, you know, and where they're appear to go underneath the circles. So when I do this, I'm moving this paper stump in the direction of these lines so that I'm keeping the graphite within a small area. So that's quite striking, but I think it's going to be more so if I add some white. Towards the bottom. If I'd done this in a reticulum, a grid, then I'd most probably do everything in, you know, all these different bits in one go. So across the grid, I'd have done all the shading that I've done so far. So I'd have done the outside bit first, then these bits and this, or however I decide to do it. But wherever I'm doing, you know, like I'm putting some white in here, and I'm going to let the grey of the paper be the shadow for this. Probably not, because I've just got the graphite ends. So I'm just putting some very pale grey around that. I'm going to put some graphite here, under here, again under here. Tricksy, because I haven't got a lot of space to work in. But I'm just going to work the graphite in and round. So I'm rounding it, going around and around there, so I have a darker area underneath, and then I can come back with the white charcoal and just add those hints of highlight along the edge. The interesting thing is, where the graphite is densest, the charcoal doesn't want to go down onto the paper. There we are. So that's quite, again, well, the sun's going in. Quite graphic. I quite like that. So much so, this actually could do with a bit more white on it. It's looking a bit on the pale, insipid side, so we'll add some white and just gently work it in. That's better, a bit more of a highlight there. Okay, which one should I do now that would be a good example? A lot of the things, like the circles, you know, double circles like this, bordered circles, you can do in a similar way to these. The overlapping, underlapping lines you can do in a similar way to this one. You can put the highlights part way along the line if you want, rather than at one end. It's, you know, it's entirely up to you how your patterns come together. For these, I am going to put highlights on the top one. Then with the end that has got graphite on it, I'm just going to use that just to add some shadows in. So I'm using my idea of sort of to the left and the bottom mostly, and then I can just go back and touch this up if I've overgone. Here, this will be in shadow here and here. So I'm just going to work that in and move it out. Oh, I've used the white end. Oh. Just like that. Perhaps a little spot of graphite at the bottom of each of those, and then I can put some white in on the top there. So that will give me my dimension, I suppose. And allowing the grey to mix with the white on the bottom sections gives that different tone, so it sets it backwards a bit as well. Around here, these little notches I would actually fill in with black ink, to be honest. I'll do one or two quickly. So all these little gaps can be filled in with black. And it's also nice to go back around the black lines once you've used graphite or the white chalk, because it just crisps the lines up again, makes the lines really crisp and sharp and visible. And I quite like that, to be honest. So there we go. Where those lines have just lost that definition, where they've been softened and blended, we can bring them back out. If you misdraw the lines, just as I've done, well, you just do what you need to in order to get them to resculpt the shape if necessary. Nobody will know at the end of it unless you tell them. And part of that is the trick, is not to point out mistakes or explain to people what you did and how you recovered from it, except I can do it because, you know, I'm kind of doing this in a teaching capacity here. And it kind of works. So here are, that is really quite nice, the white around the outside. And it really does show up against this grey. So working on coloured paper is fab. I really do enjoy it. That's why I colour white paper with distress inks, because it just makes a difference and it's easier to put highlights and so on. Oh yeah, white gel pen. Last thing, if I take this, then I can just put some white gel pen on these stripes. I'm not going to go all the way along the stripes. I'm going to respect some of that graphite really that's there, but just touching up really bright on the edges, and perhaps put those little dots in there. And we can see just how bright that gel pen is against the grey. Even in these parts I'll put some white in. There we go. So that works quite nicely. I'm just looking if there was anywhere else where I could have popped that in. Probably, but I'm not going to because I'll be here forever. Oh, one last one. These, from where all the lines are bunched together, oops, I've done it again, top and bottom, and you want that shadow to come around where that centre line is and around the outsides, and then we can just pop some white top and bottom just to catch that light. And again, if the lines, the black lines, the pen lines become muted, if you like them muted, fine. If you don't, it's going to be just a little bit of extra work to bring them back out, but it is worth it. So that really brings the dimension out in that. You can see how it looks like we've got two things folded over in a shape. It's almost like origami, but with lines and flat paper and no folding involved. So I'm going to say thank you for joining me. I've just realised it's well over an hour, nearly an hour and 10 minutes. So I hope you found this interesting. I hope there's some different kinds of fragments here that you'd like to give a go. I'm happy for you to try. There's nothing new in this world. And some hints and tips on adding shadow and highlight as well. And if you do use any of these or develop your own, don't forget, I'd love to see. You can tag me on social media. The information about where you can find me and what name I use on different platforms, it's pretty much the same, but there can be slight variations, are always in the description. So until I see you again, take care of yourselves and find time to be creative. Ta-ta for now. Bye. Hoil.